Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Part 5 Vedas, the general opinion. Thus, though there are 4 different Vedas, though there may be differences in some minor matters of procedure or methodology, all Vedas have the same lakshya or aim or mission: the welfare, well-being of individual society, region, nation, and the whole world with all its life forms is the aim. Individual advancement without harming others while assisting and enabling everybody else is the mission. To find, identify, understand, reach, and irrevocably dissolve the separateness in the permanent truth is the Lakshya. There is one additional common quality of the Vedas that is adorable and should be taken note of. It is never insisted in the Vedas that there is the only way. They never force it down anyone's throat that there is the only God. Their advice is to follow whatever path and be devoted to any God. Whatever your method, your path, your God, as long as dharma is not lost sight of, as long as do not try to gain even one unfair advantage over others, you will still attain to the destination. It is said that Akshat Patitam Toyam Yada Gacchati Sagaram Sarvadeva Namaskara Keshavam Pratigacchati Om Namaha Iti. That means the waters falling from the heavens, passing through whatever channels, anyhow reaches the same ocean, whatever name it may be known as. Similarly, all prostrations and respect paid by whosoever to whichever god will reach the same god Keshava. There, the guiding force is the gravitational pull. Here, it is the pulling power of righteousness of Dharma. That is the clarity and sanguinity of the Vedas. In liberal outlook too, there is nothing to match the Vedas. There is no other religious book of authority which can say with supreme confidence that truth is one. Many people may see it individually, differently. Vedic Dharma does not believe in conversion but inversion. Do not have to look elsewhere. Look within and you will find. Brahmanam and Aratyakam. Till now, I have been talking about the Vedas, mainly referring to the Samhita part of the Vedas. Samhita is something like the Vedas' main text. Other than this, in each Veda, there is a part known as Brahmanam and Aranyakam. Brahmanam contains instructions for various actions on karmas, like a user's manual or a guidebook. Whatever mantras are there in the Samhita, when being uttered while doing the yajna, what would be the meaning and what would be the corresponding action at the precise moment would all be given clearly in the Brahmanam. The word Aranyakam, like Dandakaranyam and Vedaranyam, has reference to life in the forest. Samhita and Brahmanam are not concerned with anything other than the worldly life. Living as a householder, the matters of concern are your attitude and behavior as an individual, as a member of the family, and as a member of the society. These are the main matters dealt with in Samhita and Brahmanam, covering all the daily, periodical, and special occasions, actions known as karma anushtana, requirements and conduct of yagas. One day or the other, sometime or the other, this life or the next, every one of us has to undergo the experience of what Buddha underwent before becoming Buddha. There will come a time when we have to talk away from all this involvement, and as Perival says, மூக்கை பிடித்து கொண்டு உட்காரத்தான் வேண்டும். So to say, you have to start pranayama and meditation. Most importantly, you will have to address the question as to who am I? The earlier portions of the Veda are meant to prepare you for this eventuality, to enable the individual to develop to this level of maturity and dispassion. The correct attitude towards oneself and others is essential. For this Chitta Shuddhi is needed. All the Samhita portion and Brahmanam portion of karma are there for this purpose only, to prepare you for the logic and analysis of the latter Aranyakam. You do not have to physically go and sit down under a tree in a forest to follow the logic and analysis known as Vichara of the Aranyakam. In Atma Bodha, Adi Shankara calls it Nitya Anitya Viveka Vichara. In another way also, the idea of Aranyakam is appropriate. These are Tattva Arthams or very subtle arguments thought of by great rishis of the Hoeri past while they were seated in very lonely, isolated spaces, uncluttered by the presence of others, beyond the confines of time and space. Actually, in Aranyakam, we are reading the reports submitted by those brilliant brains of the past. Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, which is both Aranyakam and Upanishad, starts off with a discussion on the thematic interpretation of the Ashwamedha Yagam. Upanishads. At the end of the Aranyakams occur the Upanishads. Samhita is the tree. Brahmanam is the flower. Aranyakam is the unripe pinju or kai. And Upanishad is the end fruit. In the path of knowledge, that is Jnana Marg, Upanishads are the direct means to make us realize the oneness or the non-separateness of the individual soul, self-jivatma, and the supreme over self or Paramatma. The earlier parts of the Vedas are there for this purpose only. Though the Upanishads do talk of many Vidyas, Yagnas and Devata Upasana, Tattva Vicharam or discussion of philosophy are their main contents. Their main thrust is to talk of a stage beyond actions, comparisons, assessments, evaluations, exchanges, bargains and deals. On this basis only, the whole of Vedas are divided into two parts, namely Purva Mimamsai, everything previous to Upanishads as against Uttara Mimamsai, the Upanishads. Jaimini Maharshi studied the Karma Kandam thoroughly and came to a conclusion that is the be-all and end-all of the Vedas, that included the Samhita and Brahmanam portions. He found that any other discussion of Vichara was unnecessary, superfluous, and could be misleading. His conclusions contained in Jaimini Sutra came to be called Purva Mimamsai. Similarly, Vyasa's analysis of the Jnanakandam and the resultant Brahma Sutram came to be called Uttara Mimamsai. Compared to Karma Kandam portions of Vedas, the Jnanakandam portions are rather small. Similarly, Jaimini Sutra has 1,000 sections and Vyasa's Brahma Sutram contains less than 200 sections. As we find more leaves in a tree and much less flowers and fruits in the tree of Vedas too, Karma Kandam is vast and the Upanishad portion is rather limited. The analysis of the truth in Upanishads does not end at deep intellectual cogitation only, as it happens in philosophic investigations in other countries and in other religions. What has been analyzed intellectually has to be experienced personally, individually. What is the use of describing the taste of a special dish such as gajar ka halwa? It has to be known by tasting, eating, and experiencing, isn't it? Remember the proverb about proof of the pudding. Unlike other philosophical discussions, which tend to be rather dry, Upanishads have a special additional advantage that they have the mantra aksharas in close support. The sound vibrations of the mantras immediately bring the esoteric principles in the experience, anubhava or anubhuti. Instead of keeping philosophy as an exercise of the mind in intellectual gymnastics, the earlier part of the Veda, that is Karma Kandam, prepares the individual over a period of time to live an accountable and responsible life for self, for the family, and the society, thereby making him fit for the higher reaches of Vedanta. When an individual graduates to a study of Vedanta, Upanishads, it is totally unlike any reading and understanding that one might have done prior to this. Setting aside all objective cognizances, the subject is now in the process of subjective comprehension of himself or herself. At the end of such consideration is the incontrovertible truth of oneness of Tattvam or this that seeming conundrum. It is to reach the separateness of Jivatma and Paramatma that having ripened and matured oneself, the individual sacrifices his all and adopts the sannyasa. At that time of taking sannyasa, he is given by the Guru the Upadesha of 4 Mahavakyas. All 4 of them tell the same incontrovertible oneness of Jivatma and Paramatma. If he gets these 4 sentences by heart, keep thinking about them, does deep meditation on them, known as Nididhyasanam and Dhyanam, the meditator becomes the meditated. The 4 Mahavakyas of such power are occurring in 4 Upanishads of 4 different Vedas. Many karmas, many actions, many stotras, pleasing many devatas, many mantras, rules, regulations, do's and don'ts, morals and restrictions in Samhitas, Brahmanas and Aranyakas in 4 different Vedas are all there for this purpose only. The final goal, target, mission, or lakshyam is achieved by these 4 Mahavakyas only. The highest experiential awareness is Brahman, is one of the Mahavakyas, and it occurs in Aitreya Upanishad of Rigveda as Pragyanam Brahma. In Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, in Yajurveda occurs the Mahavakya I am Brahman as Aham Brahmasmi, as being experienced by the sadhak. In Sandokya Upanishad of Samaveda is the Mahavakya, you and that God are the same, Tattvamasi, in the form of an advice from a guru to a shishya. This Atma is Brahman only as I am Atma Brahman, I am Atma Brahma, is the Mahavakya in Mandokya Upanishad occurring in Atharva Veda as a subjective observation after Anubhava. Thus, the 4 most important sentences in each of the Vedas occur in one of their Upanishads only. Adi Shankara gave us the last of his advices in Sopana Panchakam. In it, he says, learn the Veda Adhyanam of the Samhitas and do all the karmas as required in the Brahmana portion of the Vedas. Having started like this, in the end, get the Mahavakyas as Upadesha and do Anusandhanam, meaning a combination of being absorbed in thinking, brooding, cogitating, contemplating, pondering, musing, reflecting, and ruminating on the Mahavakyas. By so doing, attain to its realization, he says. To end of all that is said in the Vedas is in Upanishad. Actually, Upanishads are better known by the name of Vedanta. Antam is the end. End of Vedas is Vedantam. In two ways, it is the end of all Vedas. If you take each branch of the Vedas, first is the Samhita, then the Brahmanam, next is the Aranyakam, and at the end of Aranyakam is the Upanishad. When you look at it in another way, all said and done, however, whatever happens prior to the Upanishads are preparatory to bring you to the end point of the Mahavakya and meditation on that. So, in form, sequence, and content, Upanishads are the culmination of the Vedas and so are rightly known as Vedanta. As there is temple for the city and there is Gopuram spire for the temple, there is a pinnacle for the Gopuram to be noticed from far. Like that, Upanishad is the topmost of all Vedas. The actual meaning of the phrase Upa plus Ni plus Sada is to sit close by. The Guru makes the student sit close to himself and gives him the Upadesha. Thus, advising, he takes the Sishya close to Brahman. Thus, Upanishad could mean both getting closer to God and Guru. The Upadesha given from close quarters evidently means something secret. It is not meant for immature individuals stuck in the mire of crass, narrow interests. That is why, even within Upanishad, while talking of subtle points, it will point out this Upanishad, this Upanishad. Elsewhere in the Vedas, the hidden meaning would be pointed out as Rahasyam. In Vedanta, such subtle Rahasyas will be pointed out as Upanishad. Brahma Sutram. For each Siddhantam or principal standpoint, Sutram, Bhashyam and Vartikam are there. Now in India, there are different Siddhantam as propounded by Adi Shankara, Ramanuja, Madhva and Sri Kandar. Their Siddhantam are all commonly known as Vedic religions only. Since all these acharyas show that their viewpoints are based on the Upanishads only, taking the 10 important Upanishads, they have written Bhashyam according to their viewpoint of Siddhantam. Since all these Siddhantams put together make up the Vedic Matam or religion, the position of Sutram is taken up by the Upanishads. What are the defining characteristics of a Sutram? It should be very terse, precise, concise and brief, conveying the meaning in a minimum number of words in the form of aphorisms. This definition itself is rather elaborate instead of being terse. As per this definition, Upanishads cannot be called a set of sutras, but for all the sampradayas based on Vedic religion, there is one basic textbook in the form of Sutra 2, that is the Brahma Sutram. For Brahma Sutram, there is a Bhashyam as per each one of the sampradaya. What is this book of aphorisms? The quintessence of whatever is said in the Upanishads is given by Vedavyasa in the Brahma Sutra. Elendai in Tamil is the name for a type of berry known as bear in Hindi and badari in Sanskrit. Since Vyasa used to sit under the shades of that tree while doing tapasya, he came to be called Badrayanar. So, there is another name for this book as Badrayana Sutram. What is Jiva? What is the abode of Jiva known as Jagat? What is the reason or cause of existence? These three important questions are raised, analyzed and answered by the Vedanta Sampradaya, for which Brahma Sutra is the basic book of authority. It does not contain Vyasa's personal views. It only condenses the already existing Vedanta, Shastra, Upanishads after the in-depth consideration. As it analyzes the Upanishads in the end portion of the Vedas, it is also called Uttara Mimamsai. There are 555 sutras in it. It is divided into 4 adhyayas or chapters, and each adhyaya is further divided into 4 parts. All told, they have 191 sections. Since it talks of the ideal endpoints of sannyasa, it is referred as Bhikshu Sutram too. It has one more name as Sarirakam, as it studies the Atma residing in the Sarira or human body. Sutram also means a thread or rope. As you know, the 3 knots tied by the bridegroom in a thread around the bride's neck at the time of marriage is known as Mangalya Sutra. Adi Shankara puts on the double meaning of sutra as an aphorism and a thread. In the shloka, Vedanta Vakya Kusuma Kradanat Tattvat Sutranam, meaning as the flowers of the tree of Veda are scattered so as to make them into a garland, the thread of Brahma Sutra has been used. Today, whatever is called the Hindu Matam, including all Sampradaya, all Siddhantam are based on this basic book of Brahma Sutram. The Brahma Sutram being based on the Upanishads, there is reason enough in a way of bracketing all the Vedic religions as Upanishada Madangal. Intellectuals from the rest of the world are all praised for what is Vedanta, referring to the Upanishads only. In Tamil, when anyone sounds slightly uninvolved with normal worldly interests, there is a way of ticking him off by saying, "Hey, why are you talking Vedantam? What is the matter with you?" But there is no gain saying the fact that the Upanishads are so well stocked with total jnanam. Upanishads are not only the end of Vedas, they are also the head of the Veda Purusha. That is, if we can perceive the whole of Vedas as a divine person and call him the Veda Purusha, then whatever the other body parts, Upanishad will form his head called Sruti Siras in Sanskrit and Marai Mudi in Tamil. Are the Vedas and Upanishads at loggerheads with each other? The answers to this question and other related matters will be considered subsequently. Om Shri Mahaperiva Sharanam.